In a world full of noise, promises are easy. Words are light. They float in the air and disappear. But care, true care, has weight. It is not spoken loudly. It is revealed quietly through consistent action. When a man truly cares, you will not have to question his presence. He does not come and go like the wind. He stands like a mountain, not perfect, but present. He listens, not just to reply, but to understand, because your voice is not background noise to him. It is something he values. When a man truly cares, he protects your peace, not disturbs it. He does not bring chaos into your life, then ask you to be calm. He becomes aware of his words, his tone, his silence, because he knows. Even silence can hurt. When it is careless, a man who truly cares does not disappear when things become difficult. He does not love only the easy parts of you. He stays, especially when staying is not convenient, because care is not comfort. Care is commitment. He respects your boundaries, not because he is forced to, because he understands that love without respect is control. And control is not love. When he cares, he grows, not because you asked him to change, but because your presence inspires him to become better. He takes responsibility, not just for his successes, but for his mistakes. No excuses, no blame, just accountability, because maturity is the language of real care. He makes time, not leftover time, not when I'm free time, but intentional time, because you are not an option in his life. You are a priority. A man who truly cares will not make you feel small to feel big. He lifts you. He supports your growth, even when it challenges him, because he understands. Love is not competition. It is partnership. And perhaps most importantly, you feel safe, not just physically, emotionally. You can be yourself without fear, without pretending, without shrinking, because real care creates space, not pressure. So do not chase words. Do not be hypnotized by promises. Observe, watch how he shows up. When it is inconvenient, when it is uncomfortable, when there is nothing to gain, that is where truth lives. Because when a man truly cares, he does not just say it, he becomes it. True care is not something that needs to be loudly announced, repeatedly proven through empty promises, or constantly questioned in your own mind. It is something that reveals itself quietly, steadily, and unmistakably through consistent action. In a world where words are easy and intentions are often hidden, actions become the only language that cannot lie for long. And when a man truly cares, his actions do not leave you confused or searching for meaning. They bring a sense of clarity that settles your mind and softens your heart at the same time. Listen carefully, because understanding this can save you years of emotional exhaustion. Most people have been conditioned to focus on what sounds good rather than what is real. They are drawn to words that feel comforting, exciting, or full of potential. They hold on to those words, even when reality begins to contradict them. And when that contradiction appears, the mind does something very subtle. It begins to explain it away. It creates stories, reasons, and justifications to protect the illusion that those words were true. But reality does not exist in explanations. It exists in patterns. A man who truly cares does not create a pattern of uncertainty. You will not find yourself constantly analyzing his behavior, wondering why his energy changed, or questioning what you might have done wrong. Because real care removes the need for constant interpretation. It replaces overthinking with understanding. It replaces anxiety with calm. You begin to notice that you are not checking your phone with a sense of tension. You are not replaying conversations in your mind, trying to find hidden meanings. Instead, there is a quiet knowing that comes from consistent experience. Consistency is one of the clearest expressions of respect. It means that someone values your time, your emotions, and your presence enough to be reliable. It does not mean perfection. It does not mean that everything is always smooth or without difficulty. But it does mean that the core of their behavior remains stable. You can trust that who they are today will not suddenly disappear tomorrow without explanation. And this is where many people become confused. They mistake intensity for care. In the beginning, everything may feel strong, fast, and deeply emotional. There may be long conversations, constant attention, and a feeling of connection that seems almost too good to question. But intensity is not the same as consistency. Intensity can rise quickly and fade just as quickly. It can create a strong emotional attachment without a stable foundation. True care does not rush to impress you and then slowly withdraw. It builds over time. It deepens through repeated actions. It becomes something you can rely on, not something you have to chase. When a man truly cares, he does not leave you feeling like you are waiting for him to become the person he showed you in the beginning. He continues to be that person, not perfectly, but honestly. And honesty is not just about what is said. It is about alignment. When words and actions match, there is no confusion. When they do not match, confusion begins to grow. And confusion is not something you should ignore. It is information. It is a signal that something is not aligned. Many people have been taught to ignore that signal, to give the benefit of the doubt, to believe in potential rather than reality, to wait, to hope, to be patient. But patience without clarity can become self-abandonment. It can lead you to stay in situations that slowly drain your energy while convincing yourself that things will change. A man who truly cares does not require you to abandon your sense of reality. He does not require you to silence your intuition or question your own perceptions. Instead, his actions confirm what you feel. There is a sense of alignment between what you experience and what you observe. When he says he will call, he calls. When he makes a plan, he follows through. These may seem like small things, but they carry significant meaning. Because small, consistent actions reveal character more than grand occasional gestures. Anyone can create a moment. Very few can create a pattern. And patterns are what you should always pay attention to. Not one good day, not one deep conversation, not one moment where everything feels perfect, but what happens repeatedly over time. Because that is where truth lives. A man who truly cares does not disappear when things become inconvenient. He does not withdraw when effort is required. He does not become distant when emotions become real. Instead, he remains present. He may not always have the perfect words, but he does not vanish. He does not leave you alone in moments where connection matters the most. Presence is something that goes beyond physical availability. It is emotional awareness. It is the ability to be there with you, not just beside you. When you speak, he listens, not to respond quickly, but to understand deeply. He pays attention, not because he is trying to impress you, but because what you say matters to him. In a world full of distractions, attention has become rare. And because it is rare, it has become one of the purest forms of care. When a man truly cares, he does not treat your thoughts as something secondary. He engages with them. He remembers the details. He notices the small things. And when you express something that carries emotion, something that matters to you, he does not dismiss it. He does not make you feel like you are too much, too sensitive, or too complicated. Instead, he becomes curious. He tries to understand your perspective, even if it is different from his own, because real care is not about agreement. It is about respect. It is about creating a space where both people can exist without fear of being invalidated. A man who truly cares does not bring chaos into your life and then expect you to find peace within it. He becomes aware of how his actions affect you, not because he is afraid of losing you, but because he values your well-being. He understands that his words, his tone, and even his silence can have an impact. And when he makes a mistake, as all people do, he does not hide behind excuses. He does not shift blame or avoid responsibility. Instead, he acknowledges it. He takes ownership. He makes an effort to do better. Accountability is one of the strongest indicators of maturity. It shows that someone is not only aware of their actions, but also willing to take responsibility for them. And responsibility is a form of respect. A man who truly cares respects your boundaries, not because he feels forced to, but because he understands their importance. He does not see them as limitations. He sees them as guidance. He recognizes that your boundaries are expressions of what you need to feel safe and valued. When you communicate those needs, he listens. He does not react with defensiveness or frustration. He does not try to make you feel guilty for having standards. Instead, he takes that information seriously. Because real care is not about having access to everything you offer without consideration. It is about understanding how to honor what you offer, and safety begins to grow in that space. not just physical safety, but emotional safety, the kind of safety where you can express yourself without fear, where you can share your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns, without worrying that they will be dismissed or used against you. A man who truly cares does not make you feel like you are competing for his attention. He does not create a dynamic where you feel like you have to prove your worth to receive basic respect. Instead, he gives his time intentionally. He makes time. Not just when it is convenient, not just when everything else is done, but because he wants to, because he values your presence in his life. And this is an important distinction, because when someone values you, they prioritize you. Not in a way that removes everything else, but in a way that ensures you are not constantly placed last. A man who truly cares does not try to elevate himself by diminishing you. He does not make you feel small so he can feel significant. Instead, he supports your growth. He encourages your development. He respects your individuality. He understands that your strength, your confidence, your independence are not threats. They are qualities that add depth to the connection, because real care is not based on control. It is based on partnership. And in that partnership, you begin to feel something very different, something calm, something steady. You do not feel like you are walking on unstable ground. You do not feel like you have to constantly adjust yourself to maintain balance. Instead, you feel at ease. You feel like you can be yourself without needing to perform, without needing to hide parts of who you are, without needing to shrink to fit into someone else's comfort. Because real care creates space. It does not create pressure. And over time, this becomes undeniable. Because consistency cannot be faked forever. Patterns will always reveal the truth. Actions will always show what words try to hide. So instead of focusing on what is promised, begin to observe what is practiced. Instead of listening only to what is said, pay attention to what is repeated. Because when a man truly cares, you will not need to convince yourself of it. You will experience it again and again in ways that bring clarity instead of confusion and peace instead of doubt. And when you finally understand all of this, something inside you begins to shift in a way that is quiet but irreversible. It is not an emotional explosion, not a dramatic awakening, not a sudden transformation that changes everything overnight. It is something slower, something deeper. It is the moment you stop negotiating with confusion, the moment you stop arguing with your own intuition, the moment you stop needing external validation to confirm what you already feel inside. Because the truth is, most emotional pain does not come from what people do once. It comes from what we allow repeatedly while hoping it will eventually turn into something different. It comes from ignoring patterns and overvaluing potential. It comes from staying in situations where clarity is missing, but attachment is strong. And attachment when it is not grounded in consistency, becomes a form of internal conflict. You are emotionally connected to someone, but mentally you are constantly trying to understand them. You are not at peace. You are in analysis. You are in interpretation. You are in emotional uncertainty. And over time, that uncertainty becomes your normal state. But real connection does not live in uncertainty. Real connection creates stability inside you. Not because everything is perfect, but because what you see matches what you experience. There is no constant contradiction between words and actions. There is no emotional guessing game. There is alignment. And when alignment is present, something very important happens. You stop shrinking yourself. Because when someone truly values you, you do not feel the need to reduce your voice. You do not feel the need to over-explain your emotions. You do not feel the need to constantly justify your boundaries. You are allowed to exist fully without fear of being labeled as too much, too sensitive, too demanding, or too complicated. And this is where many people slowly lose themselves without even realizing it. Not through one big moment, but through small compromises, repeated over time. A boundary that was not respected, but ignored. A feeling that was dismissed, but not addressed. A need that was minimized, but not acknowledged. And each time, instead of stepping back, they step closer, hoping that closeness will eventually create understanding. But understanding cannot be forced through proximity. It cannot be created through sacrifice. It cannot be earned by abandoning your own emotional truth. Understanding comes from willingness, willingness to listen, willingness to reflect, willingness to care about how your presence affects another person. And when that willingness is missing, no amount of patience will create it. This is why emotional clarity is not just about understanding others. It is about understanding yourself deeply enough that you no longer abandon your internal signals just to maintain external connection, because your intuition is not random. It is not emotional exaggeration. It is perception. It is the mind and body processing patterns before your conscious mind fully accepts them. That feeling of discomfort you ignore. It is information. That confusion you keep trying to explain away. It is information. That repeated need to question where you stand. It is information, and information is not something to fear. It is something to use, because when you begin to trust your internal signals, something powerful happens. You stop needing long explanations for inconsistent behavior. You stop giving endless chances to patterns that already show you their direction. You stop waiting for clarity from someone who is repeatedly choosing ambiguity. And instead of asking, "What does this mean?" you begin to ask a much more important question. How do I feel in this dynamic consistently? That question changes everything, because feelings are not just emotions. They are feedback. They are your internal system responding to your environment. And when your environment is healthy, your emotional system becomes calmer, more grounded, more stable. You feel secure not because everything is perfect, but because nothing is consistently destabilizing your peace. A man who truly cares does not require you to constantly decode his behavior. You do not feel like you are studying him like a subject. You are not analyzing every word, every delay, every shift in tone, because consistency removes the need for interpretation. And where there is interpretation, there is often uncertainty. And where there is uncertainty, there is emotional fatigue. You cannot build peace in a place where your mind is constantly trying to solve emotional puzzles. Real care does not make you feel like you are solving a mystery. It makes you feel like you are experiencing something real, and real things do not require constant proof. They simply exist in their truth. But here is something even deeper that many people only understand after experience, not explanation. You do not just choose people in your life. You also teach people how to treat you based on what you accept. Every time you tolerate inconsistency, you normalize it. Every time you stay after being emotionally dismissed, you reinforce that your boundaries are optional. Every time you explain away behavior that hurts you, you weaken your own internal standard of what you deserve. Not because you are weak, but because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity slowly replaces discomfort with acceptance. And this is how people find themselves in cycles they never intended to be part of. Not because they cannot see the truth, but because they have stayed in something long enough that it starts to feel normal. But normal is not the same as healthy, and comfort is not the same as alignment. At some point, there comes a quiet realization that changes everything. It is the understanding that love is not supposed to feel like constant confusion. It is not supposed to feel like emotional instability. It is not supposed to require you to abandon yourself in order to keep someone else close. Real care does not demand self-abandonment. It invites self-expression. It does not ask you to become smaller. It allows you to become more fully yourself. And when you experience even a glimpse of that kind of connection, you begin to see how unnecessary all the confusion was in the past. You begin to understand that peace was never meant to be complicated. It was just not present in certain dynamics, and that realization is not bitterness. It is clarity that helps you stop romanticizing inconsistency, clarity that helps you stop overvaluing potential, clarity that helps you see that someone's inability to show up consistently is not something you can fix through patience, love, or understanding, because care is not created through effort from one side. It is built through mutual alignment. And when alignment is missing, the relationship becomes a place where one person is constantly adjusting, while the other remains unchanged. That is not connection. That is imbalance. And imbalance always leads to emotional exhaustion. But the moment you start recognizing this, something inside you begins to return to itself. You begin to reconnect with your own emotional center. You start noticing what feels right and what does not. You stop ignoring discomfort just to maintain attachment. You stop interpreting inconsistency as complexity, and instead, you begin to choose differently, not from fear, not from loneliness, not from pressure, but from awareness. You begin to understand that walking away from inconsistency is not loss.